everybody, it's Lindsay from Perfectly Bookish 5, and today I'm going to be talking about the Cassandra Clare signing. On October 12th, my friends and I headed out to Illinois. We are from Wisconsin. We went to the Cassandra Clare signing hosted by Andersons Bookshop. It was about an hour and a half drive. My friends were very nicely to drive me there because nighttime driving still isn't my best friend yet. But we got there about 6:30. The event started at 7 and it was in an auditorium. There's no one sitting in the front row, and I think it was at first because they weren't sure with the front row being so low if they'd be able to see well over the stage, and we tried it out. The seats were great. There were a lot of people there already, being like 6:30. That's why I was surprised that we were able to get the front row, but like I said, I think they were just nervous about not being able to see, but the chairs were pushed back far enough that we could see Cassandra and Veronica just fine, so I thought it was really cool that we did get the first row. Veronica Roth, the author of the Divergent series, was the moderator for this event, and she said she read the whole book the day before the event. I have a clip of them, I believe, coming on stage, and then a clip of Cassandra answering the first question. As the only video I took during the event. I wanted to kind of be there and be present listening, and if you did watch my other video, I did already read Swordcatcher, which this event was for, because I was very fortunate to have won an arc of the book, so I was coming in ready to talk about the book and just hear everything Cassandra had to say. I was really excited.
I see we all have some reality TV program that we like, even though it's kind of embarrassing. Yes. All right. We don't have to say what it is, but for me, I like reality TV shows about people in terrible situations. Like my favorite show, which sadly got canceled, was called I Shouldn't Be Alive. People getting lost at sea, lost in deserts, you know.
Do you watch Alone?
Oh, I do. I love Alone. Yes,
Alone.
and Naked and Afraid, and all of that other stuff. Like my husband cannot stand, and he's like, they couldn't be clothed and afraid? I'm like,
It's just all of us.
I'm like, you're missing the point. So one of my favorite shows is called Locked Up Abroad, and it's about Americans who have gone to other countries and tried to smuggle drugs or exotic pets and gotten arrested and thrown into prison. And then they either escape or something else happens. And I don't know why I like it, I just do. Well, there was an episode which really was not at all about anyone being locked up abroad. And it was about a guy who was in the Iraqi military, and he was pulled out of the army in order to serve as the body double for Saddam Hussein's son, Uday Hussein. He looked a little like him, and that was basically all they needed. They did plastic surgery on him, they taught him to walk like Uday and talk like him, and his job was to go to major public events and pretend to be Uday Hussein, because they were worried that otherwise someone would try to assassinate, the actual guy. He really, really hated Uday Hussein, who does not, by any account, appear to have been a nice guy. And they had a weird and miserable relationship, and eventually he had to escape from Iraq. And I enjoyed this all very much, and I was totally fascinated by the idea of what it meant to be somebody's body double. And so I started doing research into body doubles through history. I mean, they've existed for forever. Popes had body doubles, and kings, and Roman emperors. This is a practice that's been going on a really long time. And I was fascinated by the concept of what's it like to basically not be a person anymore. You are pretending to be another person, and you have no longer any identity of your own, no family, no job that you can tell people what it actually is. And so out of that came this idea of how would this work in a medieval, sort of fantasy world where there's actual magic, and you could use actual magic to turn someone into someone else, and that sort of was the idea of the Swordcatcher, the person who is our main character, Kel, in this book, is taken from an orphanage when he's 10 years old and brought to the palace, where he's sort of pressed into the service of the royal family as the bodyguard, body double of the Prince Connor. But I also thought, wouldn't it be interesting if he didn't hate this guy? That's one story, but I would be curious about if you actually were, at such a young age, made to live with someone else and act like them and be like them. I think you would have a very weird and close and complicated relationship. And so that was the relationship I was interested in exploring, and that was sort of the seed idea.
I wrote down some things to try to remember what was said while I was there, because sometimes, even though the event was great, when I leave it, I don't always remember what has been said. So it was 6 years in the making for this book, and I believe the clip I have is how this book came about. So instead of explaining that to you, I will let Cassandra talk about it herself. Cassie is, sorry, switching from Cassandra, Cassie, but she is Jewish, and I didn't realize that. So some of the ties that she has in this book have to do with her Jewish background. So there are some Ashkar in this book, and they are people who work with medicine. Some of them deal with magic and the medicine, and that is where Cassandra put some of these ties. So I thought that was really cool, her sprinkling some of herself throughout the book, because that is something I didn't know, and I don't know if I would have known that without hearing it from her herself. Just going back to the idea for how the story was written, I just thought it was really interesting that even in some more recent times that stuff like this was being done. Luckily in Swordcatcher, the way that the Swordcatcher comes about, he doesn't have to undergo surgery. So just to hear that someone had to go under surgery to purposely look like this person, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, people do it all the time. Like, I want Kim Kardashian's nose, I want Lady Gaga's lips. Like, people do that all the time, but I couldn't imagine Kel, who is the Swordcatcher in this book, because he is so young, all of a sudden being forced to make such drastic changes to make you look like someone when he didn't even have a choice here. And I just think the story could have gone a lot differently. The feelings for Connor could have gone a lot differently. And again, I don't want to talk about too much in the book, because I'm not sure who has read it and who hasn't, but it's just, well, in this book there's a little bit of magic that helps with the disguise in here, which of course, unfortunately, we don't have that to use in our world. Someone asked a question at the event of who out of all of Cassie's books is one of her favorite relationships that she has written. And I loved her answer immediately, because she said Jem and Church. I love that. You guys know I am a cat person, and I just loved that answer, and I think the audience loved it as well. But then she talked about her favorite relationship from Swordcatcher, and she was talking about Lynn and her grandfather. And then when she said that, right away I was taken aback, because if you have read this, you know Lynn and her grandfather do not have a good relationship, because Cassie started talking about her relationship with her grandpa and how it is such a good relationship that the two of them have. But I just was floored that was her answer, because you will see when you do read this book, I don't think it's a good relationship. Does it improve and this stuff happen in the book? Yes, and there are some like good intentions and everything, but oh no, it is not a relationship that I would choose to, well, you know, be the best one out of like everything that Cassie has written. There are some other funny questions referring to certain people getting killed off, or just how you go about writing certain stuff in a book. And it was funny because Veronica Roth, in her series, she has a pretty big kill, and she got a lot of hate for it. But when I went in Veronica's line to meet her, because not only was Cassie signing, with it being her event, but Veronica offered to sign things as well, which I'm so mad about because I forgot to bring my Divergent book, but I had a notebook and pen in my bag that I brought with me, so luckily I had that to ask her to sign. And I told her after like hearing her say that on stage that I actually really enjoyed what she did in her book, because it's not the cookie cutter ending and it is something that you wouldn't expect. So I'm not one who's always here for the happily ever afters. I'm here for you to wow me and surprise me. So at least one person appreciated her part in the books, or her role that she played with her characters in her books. Then Cassie was saying that book 2 is going to be called the Ragpicker King, which in Swordcatcher you meet the Ragpicker. Why can't I talk right now? And he has a pretty big role, maybe not in this book, but you could see how it turns into something more, that he is an important person. The Ragpicker is the king of like the street gangs, everything going on in the streets. He runs things, and you will see some relationships that he starts to form with the main characters and some of the side characters, that he really has a big influence of what is going on in this town. People always know of him, but you don't always know certain happenings going on, and the kingdom, the castle, knows about him as well, but because he takes care of his business, they always let him, well, not always, but with certain things, because he takes care of the business, they let it slide because he will handle what he needs to handle. But there is something that happens in here with some information that we never fully receive that I'm really curious to get in the second book. So I love that the second one is called the Ragpicker. Again, I can't say that word. That it is about him, because I think his story, and if we do get some background, will be really interesting. Right now there is not a set release date for this book because Cassie is working on The Wicked Hours, which is going to be Kit, Ty, and Drew, which I'm really excited because I think the Kit and Ty dynamic is going to be a lot of fun to read about. So lastly, I am going to show you the books. They did give you a tote bag as well, but I don't have that here with me, but imagine a pretty tote bag with these colors saying Swordcatcher and a quote from the book. So Cassie personalized this book for you. It is the hardcover of Swordcatcher, and this is what you got for going to the event. And part of what you got is this cool layover page of Lynn that was really pretty. And then you got to bring one other book to be signed, and I have a previous video where I say I have a Cassandra Clare dilemma because I couldn't decide what book to bring. All in all, I did bring my art copy of Swordcatcher, and sorry, let me find the page. So she signed this as well. Some may think, why would I bring the same book when I was getting that one signed? But to me, ultimately, this one was the one that's really special, with it being an arc. I have always wanted an arc of one of Cassie's books, and it just meant a lot to me that I was able to get this one. So it had a special meaning to me, and that's why I decided to bring this one with me. And I will put a picture in that I was able to get with Cassandra and Veronica. Cassandra was worried about COVID things. Apparently when the moderator came on, before they came out on stage, she was saying that something was going on with COVID. I asked my friend who was with me, she's a nurse, and apparently there had been a surge of COVID cases, so Cassie was taking some extra precautions. So you were still able to stand in line, talk with her. They just had, well, you'll see in the picture, some ropes, and then a helper handed your books to her and handed them back to you. And I told Cassie how I already read the book and I had so many questions I wanted to ask her, but I didn't want to spoil anything for anyone in the audience, because at this point the book had only been out for 2 days. And she's like, oh, well, go ahead, ask me now. And I'm like, thank you, but my friends who are like standing right here with me, they haven't read it yet, so I don't want to spoil anything for them. So I wish like I could have asked her and been like, you know, we were standing in a doorway, close the door so I could ask her a question, but I didn't. I was respectful of my friends who didn't read the book yet, but it was nice for Cassie to offer for me to ask her some questions in line because she had a huge line. Big thank you to Cassandra Clare, Veronica Roth, and Andersons Bookshop for putting on this event. This is the second time I have met Cassandra Clare, and it's rare when she gets close to my neck of the woods. I had so much fun with my friends. It was great celebrating Cassie's new release with her, and I hope in the future she comes again, or maybe even to Wisconsin next time. So if you see this, Cassie, Wisconsin, please. Milwaukee area. Let's be specific. Milwaukee area, please, Cassie. And yeah, I hope you guys go pick up a copy of The Sword Catcher because it is a very good book for Cassie's first adult novel. There isn't a lot of like steamy moments in here if that's what you're expecting for an adult novel. There's some stuff that happens, but the steam factor, spicy factor is not high, not a lot of peppers. But all in all, it is still a really good book. A lot of action, good characters, good world building, a bunch of different magic, a lot of mystery going on. So if you like all that stuff, go give Sword Catcher a try. Till next time, guys. See you later.